to my next question on what are some really common mistakes. Obviously, you've created videos on this. You've talked to people and maybe made some mistakes around credit cards, but what do you see as some of the largest credit card mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever want to ruin your credit score when you're using credit cards, and it's easy to do that if you don't understand how to use them. So the top two factors going into your credit score is going to be payment history and then credit utilization. Those two make up almost 2/3 of your score. But even just like one slip up with a missed payment, it could hurt your score for the next, I think, 7+ years. So you want to make sure that when you're using a credit card, you never miss a payment. You want to always pay in full, of course, because you don't want to carry a balance and pay interest. But you need to know, okay, what is my credit card statement opening date? What's the closing date? And then what's the due date, which is usually about 3 weeks after your statement closes. So you need to make sure that between that statement opening date and the statement closing date, if you're going to make any purchases on that credit card, you want to make sure that the total balance that you accumulate during that period is a very small percentage of your total credit limit. So, if you have, just to keep things simple, a $1,000 credit limit, you want to probably keep that down to maybe like, I don't know, $30 or something like that, like just something very low. And you can pay off the credit card partially just to keep that balance low, so your credit utilization stays somewhere below 5%. I like to keep my credit utilization really in like the low single digits as a percentage of my total credit limit. So keep credit utilization low from that statement closing date, statement opening date to the statement closing date. Then after the statement closes, whatever your balance is on that date is going to get reported to the credit bureaus, and that's when your credit utilization gets reported as well. So that's going to affect your credit score depending on whatever it is at that date. There's been times where if I made a larger purchase, like when I bought that engagement ring, I actually didn't pay it off in full until after the statement closed, but I made sure my limit was high enough so that it didn't like impact it too much. But my credit utilization was actually a little bit higher than it normally would be, and I saw my score drop a few points just because of that. Yeah. All I had to do was just pay it off in full, and then the next billing cycle, it went right back up and it was fine. But that's just an example of like what could happen.
Yeah, so, I've seen really quick on that. I've seen my credit score change a lot. I think what they say generally is to be below 30%, and then I think there's another cutoff at like 20 or 10%, where if you're under 30, hey, that's good. If you're under 20 or 10, you're going to see your score jump up even more. And it's not just your overall utilization on all of your credit cards and debt added up, but it's going to look at on an individual basis. So the one card you put the engagement ring on, if you used 90% of the utilization on that one card, but overall you have plenty of other available credit, you would be dinged a lot based on just that one card being overutilized essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to make sure you're aware of your utilization combined across any credit cards you have as well as per card. So that's important for your statement billing cycle right there. Then after your statement closes on the closing date, you're going to have, like I said, about 3 weeks. You want to make sure you just check with your credit card issuer, make sure you understand when your due date is. But typically it's 3 weeks after that statement closing date, around that time. That's when you have to make sure you pay off your credit card, ideally in full. But at the very least, you need to make the minimum payment. Again, pay it off in full, but the minimum payment at the very least, that'll count as an on-time payment if you do that by the due date. And then just by making that on-time payment, that works very well for your credit score. If you miss that payment, that could drop your score significantly, like dozens and dozens of points. And the longer that score is late, the more it's going to hurt your. So if it's 30 days late, that's one thing. If it's 60 days late, that's worse. 90 days late, even worse. And eventually, if it's too late, the credit card company is just going to sell off that debt to a collections agency, and that looks awful for your credit report. And that's going to destroy it, take a lot of time to recover from. So that's why it's like when people say, you're going to get into credit cards, another common mistake that I see people do is they apply for so many at once. And what people say is, okay, you can help out your credit age. So like I opened that one student credit card, and that's now my oldest account, and it's I think almost 6-7 years old. If I had opened up maybe like 2 or 3 cards within those first few months of getting credit cards, and then I had them all aging at the same time, then I have a better credit age, which is another factor of your credit score. But at the same time, I think you should really focus a lot of your energy on learning the whole credit card world in the first place. So maybe it could be good for your credit age if you open up several cards at once, but I think you really are forgetting about the education aspect of credit cards too. So I say just open up in that first year, really probably one card in the first, hold that first card for maybe 6 months or so. then in months 6 to 12, you can try to open up another one if you want to, whether that's another student card or a secured credit card, or maybe at that time you'll be able to qualify for an unsecured card with a smaller credit limit. But really in that first year, just focus on learning the credit card game. Don't worry too much about all the benefits, the cash back, the points, or anything like that. It's just about education and learning, because when you have total credit card debt that's almost $1 trillion here in the U.S., like, it's just that's a dangerous thing. So you don't want to become a part of that statistic. So be very careful. I'd say those are really the most common mistakes that I see people making. As far as credit cards.
No, one really quick thing on being late. So if you're less than 30 days, it's not going to ding your credit score. But usually if you're even a day late, you're going to have probably a $35 late fee. So the late fee is a lot. And then, so I mean, what I always say is just, if you, for whatever reason, well, if you can, just set up auto pay to pay the entire balance. But then kind of worst case scenario, at least make sure that, on auto pay, the minimum's being made. So you don't have to think about it, and the minimum payment goes through, and at that way, at least your credit score is not being dinged from that. And I completely agree on the, as what we talked about in other things too, of take your time with stuff and think long term. You don't necessarily have to hey, let's open up 3 credit cards right now, and then obviously one of them you forget to set up auto pay on, and then just don't pay it for a little while. And so obviously kind of take your time. If you want to learn more about common credit card mistakes, you can do that by watching either of the videos along the side right here, one from my channel and one from Dan's. Or if you want to watch the full interview, you can do that in the video right here. Hope to see you in another video. Bye-bye.